Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service video. In this episode we have a Shimano 102 Plus made in Japan, and has what's called the fightin' drag system. Not fighting, the fightin' drag system. And I don't know exactly what that means. You've got a quote-unquote drag programmer over here, and then you have the fightin' drag over here. Now I don't know if that's sort of like the Zebco's power drag or whatever they called it, where you would set the power drag on so that while you're fishing, before you catch a fish, it's on maximum drag. There was like a nylon or knob that came up and engaged the spool, so that when you got a hit, you would have, you could set the hook without engaging the drag, and then once you had the fish on, you'd turn that off, and then it would go back to the regular drag, whatever that was set at. I don't know if that's the case here, or if it's just you set it and then you can easily add drag from this lever while you're fishing. I don't know. Maybe we can figure that out once we get inside, but it's pretty tight. This was offered to me on a Zebco rod for $1, and I thought, well, it's in all likelihood complete and going to be a working reel, and so I gave him $5 for it. I thought $1 was a little bit too cheap, but the button is not coming back when I wind it, so it's possible it's broken. I don't know. I doubt it, but we'll see. So this is rated for, and it only gives a rating for 10-pound tests. Obviously you could use lower or supposedly higher, but it says that it's suited for 100 yards of 10-pound test. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look inside. So it's a cap that unscrews, obviously counterclockwise. A little dust in there, but not a lot of lake scum. Looks like we have a nut on the spinner head. Yep, that line stop's going to be in the way there. So we'll get out the socket here. I'm not going to go all caveman with the pliers this time, so we'll just loosen that properly with a socket. Yeah, there. And then the line stop is in great shape, still supple, rubber. There's your pickup pin with just a simple kind of a band type spring. Put that in the parts tray. And then we've got the classic E-clip here, and we probably should make sure that the drag, and I don't even know what direction this drag goes to turn it down. There's no marking saying up or down, but this is a good time to try to make sure your drag is at the lowest part, because that will reduce pressure on that E-clip. And that's probably why it wasn't working to a certain extent. Look at look at the line wrapped around that axle shaft there. Okay, so we can take off the spool. There's some grease there. Doesn't look like the... wonder if they were supposed to... oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, I thought that was part of the spool. There is your metal drag washer, which is keyed, and then you've got a Teflon one here. Yeah, off there. Okay. And then you've got a fiber, a thick fiber one here on top of the pressure plate. But right now, let's get rid of that nasty old line. There. That may have been factory line on there. You can I can always sort of tell by the way they tie the line onto the spool. So that may have been factory line. And by the way, there isn't much information on this reel online. I saw one listing that had it dated at 1981. Yeah, I don't know how correct that is. Maybe it's safer to say early 80s. I just don't know. There's not much on it. That wouldn't surprise me if it was early 80s. But at any rate, okay, we've got this fiber washer, drag washer to get off of there. Wouldn't be. This looks like it might be factory grease too. And then underneath this fiber washer, if we can get that confounded thing off of there, is another metal washer. And then this pressure plate here that has the bait clicker attached to it. That's a new one for me. Now let's examine this drag system. So this pressure plate goes on there like that, and this has a little turn down tab on it, and that fits into this slot, or well, between these two posts right over here. See those two posts right there? And then the other end, so you can see two metal pieces here. This one's associated with what they call the drag programmer, and so that one's working like your typical drag. It's pushing up a screw that's going to push up on the pressure plate, and that's one level of drag. And then this thing, boy, I don't see much action going on there. This little screw is coming up ever so slightly, like about 1.5 threads, or maybe a half a thread, ever so slightly between the full range of movement of this thing. But maybe that, coupled with whatever drag is set over here, is just enough to get you that extra fight while you're fighting a fish. But boy, it doesn't make much of a difference in the, I guess. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's all with the fighting drag all the way off, but it's not really off. And then when I push it up, that just comes up ever so slightly. So looks like just kind of an additional while you're fighting a fish type drag. So we'll get the pressure plate off of there. Get these metal drag washers in the parts tray. And now we can, I think, take off, let's see here, yeah, the rear cover. And for some reason that didn't look like that that button was coming all the way back out, but when we first tried to do it, let's see here, there it's out there. Yeah, okay, I think it's just grease bound. All right, the next move will be to remove the handle, and that kind of looks like it should be done with a coin. These are sort of not flat, these grooves in there. It kind of looks like it would be a Phillips head, but it looks like it's, you know, it's convex, or I'm sorry, concave. Each of those is concave. I think it would be better suited to a coin. I will try a penny here. Yeah, that's going to work just fine. That's a 64. That's a true copper penny. I keep all the, sometime in the middle of 1982 they started making them part copper. Well, they started putting a lot more zinc in them. The early 82 ones were copper. But I keep all my pre-19, I don't mess with the 82 ones figuring out which one's which, but I don't know why. I just keep all my pre-1982 because they're worth more than a penny. Okay, now this little shield comes off then. So you got a nut, or a bolt, the handle, the little shield, and then let's see. Don't tell me we're gonna have to take off that confounded. Yep. I guess because remember the one I just did, the spin at 270, when the pinion gear, the teeth are slanted like that. I don't think you can get it off and get it past. Well, let's see. We've got some kind of little spring on here. I don't know how that. So this anti-reverse pawl here has got a spring on it, and I don't know if that just sits in that hole or if it's bent around the hole. Looks like, yeah, it looks like it's hooked around that hole. Now, again, it looks like you've got the anti-reverse cogs that are getting in the way, so I'm guessing we'll have to remove an E-clip here. Good God. Oh, this nasty grease. I can't even see the E-clip, or like which end to pull on. There it is. All right. Let's see if we can get this off without losing it. Well, this is worthless. There's your E-clip. Now, pull the spring off, and I'm guessing then we can push that axle shaft through there like that. And take off our pinion gear, and then it looks like there comes your anti-reverse gear. Now, is that one piece? So you got to watch that little wire there. You don't want to wash that off in the sink. But it looks like there's two parts to it, but I think they're pressed in, so I don't think you have to worry about any washers and things. But this wire's got grease all over it, but you don't want to lose this wire here. See how it's get off of there. See how it's bent like that? That bent around, that fit into this, that little wire wrapped through that hole on the anti-reverse, and it looks like you can get that off too. Looks like you're going to have to take off the programming drag to get the main gear off. I guess just counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, lefty-loosey, so we can. What are we stuck on now? There it goes. So we can pull that off. It's just a bolt and a knob and a spring. And then hopefully we can just slide out the main gear. And that's all one piece. Put that in the parts tray. I don't see any reason to take off the anti-reverse pawl here. So unless I find a reason, I'm not going to do it, because I don't want to booger up the tines on that washer or whatever you want to call it that holds it in place. And as long as I can get that wire to slink back in there again, I see no reason. I can clean this. I see no reason to try to take that off. Now, in terms of, I don't think I'm going to mess with this either. It does have an E-clip there that you could probably winkle off. You can't grab it here. There's not enough to grab onto. But you could probably get a couple screwdrivers or something and winkle that off and pull this off. But I think I can clean it and lubricate without it. This is your drag clicker here, no, that's the clicker that lets you know that you're turning your fighting drag. And then you had another clicker for the drag associated with the programming or actual drag release clicker or drag engagement clicker. So that's as far as I'm going with this. Is this metal? Hey, that's metal. So this housing is metal. That's good. Pretty well built. Real with good quality metal parts. So I'm going to get all of that into the parts tray. And then I'm going to go over to the sink and thoroughly rinse this with warm water and a toothbrush with some Dawn dish soap. I'm going to get down into all the journals. It's a nice metal spindle too, with a cotton swab, and including here, and some WD-40, especially on the gears and stuff where the grease is really thick. And I'll be back just like that. Alright, let's pull all the parts out so you can see what's all here. Well, there's that pinion gear. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, where is my steel wool, is I'm going to take and polish up these shafts because they've got some black residue. And I see a bit of wear on that pinion gear, but nothing to worry about. So it was definitely used. Alright. I guess the first thing that we could probably do is put the main gear back in. So we're going to get some grease and grease up the teeth on the main gear, and then some oil for the shaft, and put that in there, work that in a little bit. And I see no reason why we can't go ahead and assemble the handle on there. Now that's keyed. Okay. Oh, there is a little star lock washer on there on the outside of the handle, between the handle and the screw. So be aware of that. That's working nicely. Okay, and then I think we can go ahead and throw our I might go wash that knob. I didn't wash that knob. I'm gonna go wash that knob quick. There. So we can put the drag screw back in, put our spring in, and we're going to just clockwise turn to get our programming drag back into position. And I'm just going to screw it in just enough that at the end of that screw is just up level with the back of that plate so that the drag is completely off. Then we've got to get our, probably should have did that drag thing last. I've got less room to work in here, but we're going to take this little wire on our anti-reverse gear and get it back in that hole. It went in pretty easily, but it actually wraps all the way around that hole. It doesn't just, it's hooked, so it doesn't just set in there, it hooks in there. And then we can put our pinion gear kind of in place. And then we're going to want to oil this first. And we're going to put that up through the, and it is a D shape, so you've got to get it twisted just right so that it fits through there. And then, yeah, there. Come on. And then we can sneak our, that's D shape too, sneak our pinion gear on there and then mesh it with the main gear, and we can go ahead and grease the gears and a little around the anti-reverse. Get that backed off there a little bit so it engages. Okay, and then we got to get our spring on. And try not to lose the E-clip. So we're going to pull the spring down, find out where that groove is for the E-clip, and pop that on. Okay, that's working really nice. Look at that. Look at that. Anti-reverse is working. We can put a little bit of oil in the handle knobs and work that around down in there. Let that soak down in between. And then we're ready for the rear cover. And now we can start working on the spool, and I've got this fighting drag all the way backed off. I'm going to start by, because this spool does spin around the spindle, that's part of the drag function. We're going to give that a little lubrication, and then up here, this little ridge that engages the pickup pin and that kind of thing when you push the button and so on. So now we got our pressure plate to apply. Remember that the bent down tab goes between these two posts, and so that would be on the programming drag side. The other end falls down on the fighting drag. I'm going to tune that up a little bit, just ever so slightly, just in case it got sprung a little bit. And then we've got our keyed metal washer, and those little, they just fit in. There's 3 grooves on the spindle and 3 little tabs, so you just line those up, and that slides down. And then we've got this fiber washer. I'm going to just get a little bit of grease on my fingers and just Work that in a little bit, just ever so slightly, grease that. And then we're ready for our spool, making sure that the grooves are face down, because that's your drag clicker. I did a dumb thing in the last video and forgot to had it upside down. I knew better. Just when you're talking and trying to do a video, you just don't think as clearly. Forget things. But that's a nice sounding drag clicker. So then we had a Teflon drag washer, and somewhere around here another keyed metal drag washer. Get those into the 3 grooves. That one didn't fit on. It seemed like it fits on quite as tightly as the other one. Okay, so you've got a D-shaped axle shaft and a D-shaped spinner head. So where's the flat side? Right there. Okay. That goes on like that. And then, whoop, dumb. See what happens? Forgot to put the E-clip on. Come on. What's going on here? Don't tell me that goes in only one certain way. Well, looks like the groove goes all the way around. There it goes. Now we can put the spinner head on, hopefully. And then the nut. Get back on there. So let's check our push button mechanism. And what just happened? Okay, there's the pin. Pin's going in. Spinner head's going up. Wind it, returns to the out position. And this drops down, so that's working just fine. We're ready for the front cover. Which just screws on clockwise. Trying not to get it cross-threaded. Well, not very well. This one does not appear to have a drain hole, unless it's covered up by the decal, which I've seen already. Get all the oils cleaned off of it. And there's a really nice, good looking, quality built Shimano 102 Plus with fighting drag. That'll make a nice little reel. So that'll do it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.